Morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. And I hope you're going to have a great day. I know I'm going to. And today we're going to be talking about a book that I ran across probably 20 some years ago. And it really made a big impact on my psyche. Because I come from a place of at the time, so there's a couple things that happen when people go through trauma when they're young, or trauma at any point in time. What happens is the body compartmentalizes information, and you get enough compartments in your brain, and you end up with a very rigid thinking, a very rigid mindset, and it can turn then into mental health issues of, multiple personalities, or just an inability to integrate all those different parts. In fact, in therapy, it's called integration therapy, where you take all the different parts and pieces that were kind of shoved down and you reintegrate them. And so for a long time, my thinking was very rigid because I hadn't done enough of my healing work yet. And I used to liken it to, you could dial it in like a cable channel, or I would remember like the television sets, where you could dial it to channel 2 or 5 or 7. You'd stand up, you'd go to the TV, and you'd turn it to the right channel before remote controls. And my mind always felt like that's the way that it worked, that you could just sort of dial in the part or piece of me that was needed for any moment, any situation. And that's a natural, normal side effect of trauma. That's just the way that it works. We compartmentalize, and then our thinking becomes rigid, and then people think that because we're not as integrated, that you're not authentic, or there's all sorts of weird stuff that comes from that. But in reality, it's because you need to open up all those compartments and start integrating all those parts and pieces that had been shoved down. And so for me, most of the books that I'd read up until then were always informational. I'd read a lot of fluffy fantasy stuff, but when I wanted to move forward, when I wanted to get something done, it needed to be step by step and logical and rational and things like that. And that's when I ran across Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, I think. Or it's Clarissa Estes Pinkola. I think it's Pinkola Estes. Anyways, you can find it on Amazon, Women Who Run with the Wolves. And what I loved about this book is it started to get me thinking about the different archetypes of women. Instead of being, well, this is what a good woman does, this is what a bad woman does, this is what, whatever it may be, instead of compartmentalizing everything, I finally started to see a whole range of how women could respond to and interact with life. So you didn't have to stay in the rigid box that you were taught about what women were like. And it's very rich, and it is informational, which is what immediately drew me to it. But there's so many wonderful stories, and it takes all of these folklore. Here we go, a little bit better. Oh, nope, not quite. We'll keep it here. It takes all of this folklore about women and wild women, and it disseminates it and picks it apart a little bit and looks at the metaphors and says what it really means and what women are really going through, and the rich female experience. Because I had found that in all this personal growth stuff and new age stuff, it tended to be focused on the male experience, on what men needed to get better at it, what men needed to evolve to. And it was definitely more, step-by-step rigid, more masculine. When I opened up this book, I realized there's a whole world out there about how women are supposed to live their lives in whatever colorful way fits them best, but it's rich and it's meaningful, and it's about destruction and bringing it back together, and all of these beautiful stories. She did an amazing job of really starting to change the paradigm about what a good woman looks like and what women's purpose is on earth. It's not dry at all. Oh my gosh, it just sucks you in. And the reason I remembered this book was because I'd mentioned it someplace, and suddenly all of these other women said, oh my God, yes, that was one of my favorite books. You know, and they too had bought it for everybody that they knew, and they too had, you know, thumbed their book until it was, you know, ratty and tattered. You know, I did too. After I read it, I bought everybody the book, and I read it, and I read it, and I read it multiple times, just because it was finally a breath of fresh air about about the reality that women go through, because it's not talked about much. Women's experiences and how we're built, and the richness and the depth and the multidimensionality and the stories and the histories. You don't hear that in school. You don't hear that in therapy. You don't hear it in common literature. You don't hear it in self-help. You hear about the masculine model, which is do this, then this, then this, and this, and this. And it's very logical, but it's not very realistic for the experience that women are really having. So if you're looking to kind of break out of your paradigm and start thinking in different ways, this is a perfect book for that. Women Who Run with the Wolves. Clarissa Pinkola Estes. She's a PhD. It's not you know, a quick, easy read, but it's a fast read because it's just it just sucks you in. I haven't found any other book that's quite like it, that really gives your mind some inspiration and motivation. So that's your homework assignment today, is to go on Amazon, you know, or to your favorite bookstore and find this book and start reading it, because it's going to get you out of your mindset. It's going to get you out of the, you know, out of the pattern you've been in, and it gives you a whole rich new way of looking at your life. You no longer see yourself as a failure. You see yourself as doing exactly what women are supposed to do, because this is what women do. You know, you will discover that you are exactly on the path. You just didn't know it, and it's because everybody else was telling you from a masculine point of view that you were wrong. So I want you to look that up. And if you don't know who I am, I'm Rita Hickman, body-mind expert, shiatsu massage therapist, and I help women with narcissist and codependent issues. Okay? I help them reclaim their life, get the brain fog out, get their energy back, make changes, change how they think, get the pain gone, unpack all of those emotions and dramas. That's what I do. And if you need a little bit of extra help, I do one-on-one coaching. Send me a message. I'll send you a link to the application. I also do some Facebook groups. One of them is a public group, Healthy Mindsets to Cope with Narcissists. Or I've got a private group that I do that's in conjunction with an author on narcissism. So if you're interested in that private group, let me know too. And I think that's it. Oh, and I do one-on-one coach. Oh, I did say that. Anyways, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Get the book, start reading it, start thinking differently, because you'll realize that you are doing it perfectly and you are right on time. Okay? Have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later.